at this tweet from Donald Trump, President-elect of the United States. In any event, he says, Syria is a mess, but is not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. In capital letters. What's your reaction to that, Jo?
I think it's incredibly irresponsible. I guess it's what I've come to expect from Donald Trump, washing his hands of any responsibility and vacating an area of the world which, you know, the risks are real and instability there will have real impacts on that region is just not good enough.
This debate is unbelievable. The Assad regime has fallen, and within minutes, Britain is discussing how we can get involved. You can't win with these people. No matter what Western countries do, these lefties will hate. She'd be the first to rip into Trump if he did get involved in Syria. If Britain does get involved, she'll be the first to use that to justify half of Syria moving here. All they do is attack Britain and America for meddling in the Middle East. They say, if you don't want millions of refugees coming your way, don't destabilise their countries. Now they are saying it's irresponsible not to get involved in stabilising the country. Which is it? They all talk about democracy there, but is it even possible? Let's face facts. They'll never have Western-style democracies because of Islam. Let's just be honest about that. Islam is the preponderant force in these countries and is fundamental to absolutely everything. Do these people who have just brought down the Assad regime look like they are interested in democracy to you? Yes, Islamic countries can be peaceful, but they won't be truly democratic. Every time they try, it seems there is always some extreme group or other peddling an extreme form of Islam, waiting in the shadows for the right moment to cause disruption and seize control. Maybe it's time to just leave them to it. They can work it out themselves. If we don't get involved, no one can complain about meddling, and no one can complain when we say no to any refugees from that area. There is no benefit to Britain in importing massive numbers of Syrian refugees. It's simply not our responsibility. We've taken in enough people in recent years. Enough is enough. Often they move here to get away from life in their homelands, but cling to the culture and customs that made their countries into a place they wanted to flee from in the first place. Here's the full debate.
We're seeing conflicts around the world are affecting us here at home. 5 million Syrian refugees. It's why we need to work for a more stable and secure world, as we're doing across the region, and of course, within our own continent, helping to support Ukraine as well.
There are worries of a power vacuum.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see the celebrations on the streets of Damascus, you know, and I think we do feel hopeful for the people of Syria, but I think, as has been said, we need to make sure that the interim government is supported, that human rights are observed, that stability is brought to the sector. And I do hope that there is a broader reset of grown-up politics in the UK and how we speak about refugees and how we speak about immigrants, and, you know, that we fulfil our obligations and responsibilities to making sure that areas of the world that have been destabilised are supported in a democratic way.
Have a look at this tweet from Donald Trump, President-elect of the United States. In any event, he says, Syria is a mess, but is not our friend, and the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved. In capital letters. What's your reaction to that, Jo?
I think it's incredibly irresponsible. I guess it's what I've come to expect from Donald Trump, washing his hands of any responsibility and vacating an area of the world which, you know, the risks are real and instability there will have real impacts on that region is just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that. I mean, actually, there's a cost to doing something, and we do know with a lot of America's invasions and various kinds of involvements historically that hasn't necessarily gone to plan, to say the least, in the Middle East. I think that he is right to say that, of course, the Assad government was not friendly, but we do not know the reality of what this new takeover is going to mean right now. So I think that rushing to do something militarily or otherwise, I think, would be unwise before we actually see how they develop.
I mean, Ed, I was sorry.
I was just going to say, I mean, on the one hand, the United States obviously doesn't have the problem of huge numbers of refugees. So you can see why he says, oh, it's nothing to do with us. For us, it is very important that we try to create a society where people do feel comfortable about living. But the second thing is the future of the Middle East, which America does have an interest in. America are closely allied to Israel, Syria on the border. What happens in Syria is very relevant.
But you will remember, of course, Jeevan, in the House of Commons, there was a vote on military action involving the UK and the United States when Barack Obama was president, and it didn't go through, much to the anger at the time and frustration at the time of the then Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron. Was that the wrong decision then?
It was 11 years ago to bomb in response to the chemical weapons attacks at the time. What the impact would have been
It was
on
a
that,
red
I think,
line,
is,
supposedly.
what the impact would have been on the Assad regime, I think, is unclear. I should have used beforehand in the Libyan civil war, for example. We did intervene to stop Assad Gaddafi implementing what was then a quasi-genocide, and obviously a low-level civil war since. What I'm saying more broadly is this: there are not easy answers to these questions. There's no magic button we have here in the United Kingdom. I wish we could wave a wand and fix all these problems. We cannot. We are going to carefully move forward in this situation as we would do in the past. What the impact would have been in airstrikes 11 years ago, I think, is incredibly unclear.
I mean, Libya was not a great sort of testbed, if you like, for any sort of intervention, even though there were no boots on the ground.
I mean, Libya did not work out, and we pulled out too soon and didn't stay to try and create a new functioning society. But I do think that the decision not to respond when Assad used chemical weapons did represent a terrible defeat for the West, where we had said chemical weapons absolutely unacceptable, there are consequences, and when you use them, there weren't really.